My name is Rochelle Quinn, 29 years old. I sat in my parents' living room, perched on the edge of the same floral armchair that had sagged into the carpet for 2 decades. Christmas lights twinkled through the bay windows, their reflections sliding across rows of framed family photos. Vacations in Maui, Juliet's prom night, Dad's corporate award banquet, all frozen smiles, though mine never seemed to reach my eyes. The fireplace crackled, flames sending warmth into the room, but never thawing the chill that collected under my ribs. Juliet squealed beside the tree, tearing open a gold-wrapped box. "Mom! Dad! It's exactly what I wanted," she gasped, holding up a cream-colored Gucci Marmont bag as though it were a newborn. The logo shimmered under the lights. Mom beamed, "Only the best for our baby girl." Dad nodded, sipping bourbon with the satisfied grunt of a man who had provided. "You deserve it, princess." The room stilled when my turn came. A small envelope lay on my lap, sealed with a snowflake sticker. My fingers didn't tremble. Years of practice had trained them, but my stomach performed its familiar descent. Inside waited a $2 paper card. Snow-capped mountains. Season's greetings, printed in generic script. No handwritten note. No gift card. No check. Something in me folded soundlessly. 29 years of fragile hope collapsed as easily as paper creased in a palm. Across the room, Aunt Margaret caught my eye. Her lips parted, then closed again. A flicker of horror before she rearranged her expression. She knew. She had always known. I slipped the card into my pocket like contraband, a souvenir of invisibility. Dad checked his watch, thumb rubbing the worn leather strap. "We'll need to head to the restaurant by 7. Traffic will be heavy." Mom busied herself refilling Juliet's eggnog, gaze skimming over me with surgical precision. "Look how the leather catches the light." Juliet paraded across the room, handbag swinging on her arm. "It goes with everything I own." My hands betrayed me at last, a slight tremor as I folded the envelope. Aunt Margaret rose, crossing the carpet. Her hand found my shoulder, fingers pressing firmly. A code tapped through skin. "You're not wrong," she whispered. "You deserve so much more." My throat locked, but I nodded once. The wool of my coat scratched my wrist as I buttoned it from bottom to top. No one noticed me leaving except Aunt Margaret. The front door opened onto silence, sharp and clean as the winter air. Outside, snow powdered the walkway in faint silver. I walked down the steps, each crunch underfoot loud against the muffled laughter leaking from the house. The drive to Council Crest Park took 12 minutes. I parked facing the overlook, the city of Portland glowing below like scattered coins spilled across velvet. Families gathered under roofs, clinking glasses, telling stories. Inside my car, only the tick of cooling metal answered. I pulled the card from my pocket, turning it over in my hands. Not just paper, a symbol. Decades compressed into ink and cardboard. Birthdays overshadowed by Juliet's milestones, graduations where they arrived late, dinners where my accomplishments barely registered. Tears blurred the city lights until they melted into watercolor smears. My chest heaved, each sob startling in its force, years of restraint cracking open all at once. A tap on the window startled me. A man in a beanie leaned down. "Sorry, do you know if this road loops back to the freeway?" I wiped my cheeks, rolled the window down a crack, gave brief directions. He thanked me and jogged away, his taillights soon vanishing into the night. But his interruption left me trembling. I had blurted out, without meaning to, "I'm just the extra." My voice had carried into the cold. My truth had escaped, even if only to a stranger. When had I become invisible in my own family? The question fogged the windshield, lingering like smoke. Earlier that morning, I had stood in my Portland apartment, carefully wrapping gifts bought on a teacher's salary stretched thin by student loans and rent. Months of saving had led to that moment. The Italian silk scarf for Mom, $180. Tied with a bow, I redid 3 times. "She'll love the blue pattern," I whispered, smoothing the paper. The Parker pen for Dad, $145. His initials engraved on the barrel. He had mentioned needing a new one for client meetings. The rare art book for Juliet, $120, with a handwritten note about the exhibit we'd promised to see together, a promise she'd never kept. Hope still lived in me then, stubborn as weeds breaking through concrete. Maybe this Christmas would finally be different, I had told my reflection as I brushed on mascara. But here I was, sobbing over a card. I opened the glove compartment, searching for tissues. Instead, I found an old parking receipt. Ridgeview Investments, 3 hours of parking. I frowned. That wasn't mine. I had borrowed Dad's car last month for a conference. Had he tucked the slip in here by accident? Why would an investment firm pay for his parking, not the other way around? I slid it back, unsettled. Too small to matter, too pointed to forget. The wind clawed through the cracks of the car, whispering questions I wasn't ready to answer. My phone buzzed with a family group chat notification. Juliet's selfie with her new bag captioned, "Best parents in the world." I silenced the phone, shoved it face down. Stars winked faintly overhead, sharp against the winter sky. I leaned forward, forehead against the steering wheel. What would I tell my students if this happened to them? I asked aloud. I knew the answer, that they deserved respect, that love shouldn't require constant proof of worthiness, that sometimes the family we are born into cannot see us clearly. The city pulsed below, indifferent yet strangely comforting. My tears slowed, my breath steadied. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel not just hurt, but certainty. I would not beg for visibility anymore. The card lay open on the passenger seat, its printed message glowing faintly under the dashlights. Season's greetings. The irony almost made me laugh. I picked up a pen from my purse, scribbled across the inside, "The last time I'll beg." Then I closed it, my hand steady at last. Aunt Margaret's words replayed in my head. Your grandmother's ledger kept things straight. Her voice had trembled on the word ledger. Why mention it tonight, of all nights? The snow thickened on the windshield, erasing the city lights. I started the engine, headlights carving a path back through the trees. Somewhere behind me, my family toasted Juliet's purse, my absence unnoticed. But in that silence, a seed had been planted, one that would grow roots deeper than any gift could uproot. 1 month passed after Christmas, and the $2 card had not left my purse. Its edges were frayed now, softened by repeated touch. Like a wound, I kept prodding to be sure it still hurt. On a gray Portland afternoon, I spread photo albums across my living room floor. January sunlight pressed weakly against the clouds, leaving the apartment in a half-light that suited the task. Around me, artifacts of my own life arranged themselves like evidence in a courtroom. 13th birthday. Supermarket sheet cake, collapsing under fluorescent kitchen lights, my smile tentative, eyes trained on a frosting rose. Next to it, Juliet's 16th, a chandeliered hotel ballroom, her arms strung with pearls, while Dad beamed like a proud stage manager. I placed the photos side by side, the contrast almost laughable. College acceptance letters followed. Mine, full academic scholarship to Portland State, tucked in a plastic sleeve with their note clipped on. You'll need to work part-time for expenses. Juliet's to fashion school carried their scrawl. We're so proud. Don't worry about a thing. Graduation day photos came next. In mine, I stood alone on the auditorium steps, gown hanging crookedly. Mom and Dad had arrived 20 minutes before the ceremony ended, Dad checking his watch, muttering, traffic was awful. Their excuse had been Juliet's preliminary fashion show. In Juliet's album, by contrast, Dad held her bouquet, Mom adjusting her necklace, both radiant with time to spare. The weight of proof grew heavier as I stacked the pages. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out the leather-bound ledger I had kept since college. Columns of numbers lined its pages. Tuition, student loan statements, bookstore shifts at $12 an hour. Total debt, $24,800. Beside it, I had taped a printout of Dad's email from those years. Sorry we can't help with your security deposit right now. Next to that, a newspaper clipping announcing Juliet's Milan study program, tuition $38,000, with an additional $20,000 for essentials. I stared until the figures blurred, neon signs of inequity burning across my vision. On my coffee table lay this month's rent statement, $1,200 for my one bedroom with a heater that rattled like an old train. I scrolled Instagram to Juliet's latest post. Blessed family support. Under a selfie in her luxury apartment, rent double mine. The old ache swelled again. Yet, alongside it, something sharper, a clarity I hadn't allowed before. I opened my journal, laid the $2 card inside, and wrote beneath it in block letters, "The last time I'll beg for love." My phone vibrated with a group chat ping. Mom, casual dinner Sunday. Dad's grilling steaks. I typed, "Sorry, I have plans. No excuses. No promise to reschedule." A minute later, Juliet's bubble appeared. "Rochelle, can you help me move into my new place next weekend? Mom and Dad are busy with some financial thing." My thumb hovered. The old version of me would have said yes, shown up with donuts, spent hours wrestling IKEA furniture. I typed instead, "Good luck with the move." Her reply flashed instantly. "What's wrong with you lately?" I answered, "I need some time away from family gatherings." Three dots. Disappear. Reappear. Finally, Mom's going to be upset. I set the phone face down. For once, her upset wasn't my responsibility. The following Saturday, I sat in a pottery studio tucked into a converted warehouse, my hands sinking into cool clay. The wheel hummed, steady and hypnotic. The instructor, Miranda, circled behind me. Silver streaks of hair fell across her cheek as she leaned over. "You've got a natural feel," she said. "Most beginners fight the clay. You're learning to collaborate with it." The metaphor struck me. For years, I had fought against the family's perception of me, exhausting myself trying to bend their clay into shape. What if I learned to build something new instead, with the materials at hand? Miranda straightened. "Just don't overstabilize. Clay needs freedom, or it cracks." I realized my knuckles were white from gripping the spinning form. I forced them to loosen. 2 days later, I lay on a couch in a therapist's office, shelves lined with books and potted succulents. Dr. Williams, glasses perched at the end of her nose, studied me carefully. "You describe their neglect as if it's weather," she said softly. "Cold fronts you just endure, but weather doesn't choose. People do." I stared at the ceiling tiles. I guess I wanted to believe it wasn't intentional, that it was just oversight. Her pen tapped against the pad. "Oversight repeated for 29 years is not oversight. It's a pattern." Her words sank like stones. When I left the office, rain pattered against the sidewalk, each drop a small percussion. I carried a new awareness. The problem wasn't that I was unworthy. The problem was that they had chosen not to see me. Later that week, Aunt Margaret called. "How are you holding up, honey?" I hesitated. "Some days I'm fine. Others I feel like I'm digging up bones." Her voice softened. "Sometimes that's the only way to understand the living." She paused. "I found something in your grandmother's attic last month. A ledger. She always kept things equal. I think you should see it." A pulse thrummed in my ears. "What kind of ledger?" "Financial. She tracked everything. Birthdays, tuition, gifts. She believed in fairness." Margaret's breath caught as though she had said too much. "Anyway, we'll talk soon." When we hung up, I stared at my wall where family photos had once hung. I had taken them down weeks earlier, replaced them with prints of solitary trees standing against stormy skies, images of endurance. "A ledger," she had said. "Equal." My pulse didn't settle for hours. At school the next day, a student lingered after class. "Ms. Quinn," she whispered, "your assignment about writing our story from a different perspective. It helped me see I'm not just background in my family." Her words struck me with the force of truth. Background. That was what I had been made to feel. But if my students could shift their narratives, maybe I could too. That night, I stood in the kitchen with clay still under my nails, journaling between sips of tea, my handwriting carved across the page. I'm not background. I'm the author now. I folded the $2 card into the journal, closed it, and set it on the shelf like a contract signed with myself. Somewhere inside me, hope, stubborn weed that it was, didn't die this time. It transformed, its roots digging deeper, its stalks turning into something harder, sharper, unignorable. Outside, the city breathed its ordinary rhythm. Apartment windows glowed across the street, silhouettes of strangers cooking, laughing, living lives unburdened by my history. I placed my hands against the cool window glass and whispered, "No more begging." And for the first time in years, I believed myself. The February rains had not let up in Portland. Gray veils of water streaked the windows of my classroom as I packed up essays, already dreading the long commute home through traffic and puddles. My phone buzzed. Principal Harrington wanted to see me. His office was always a cavern of stern silence, plaques and commendations lining the walls like silent judges. Today, however, he smiled, which was rare enough to make my heart stutter. "This," he said, sliding a folder toward me, "is exceptional work. The student responses to your creative writing unit. I've never seen engagement numbers like these." I scanned the evaluations. One sentence leapt off the page. Ms. Quinn's assignment about writing our life story from another perspective changed how I see myself. I never thought about being the hero instead of the victim. The words landed in my chest like a warm stone. There's more, Harrington continued. We need someone to lead the summer writing program. It comes with a stipend, and frankly, your independent spirit is exactly what we need. Independent. That word used to sting, sharpened by my mother's dismissive tone. You've always been so independent, Rochelle. You don't need much from us. But here, in this office, the word glowed with respect. I'd be honored, I said, my shoulders straightening. That evening, as rain tapped against the apartment windows, I scrolled through my inbox. One email subject froze me. Invitation to present at the Pacific Northwest Education Conference. My finger hovered over delete. The first instinct was to assume it had been sent by mistake. But Dr. Williams' words from therapy replayed. Assume you deserve good things until proven otherwise. I clicked accept. The phone buzzed just as I closed my laptop. Mother's name glared on the screen. Against better judgment, I answered. Rochelle, I was thinking, you should host Easter dinner this year. Juliet is busy with her new project, and it would give you a chance to show everyone your cooking skills. The ellipsis in her voice carried unspoken judgment. Prove yourself again. I pressed the phone to my ear, staring at the pottery bowl drying on my counter. I'm not available to host this year, I said. Calm, simple, no excuse. Silence crackled. Your father will be disappointed. I'm sure he'll manage, I replied, and ended the call. My pulse raced, but the relief was intoxicating. Midnight came weeks later with Juliet's sobbing voice through the phone. He broke up with me, Rochelle. Derek just walked out after dinner. I need you to come over. I can't be alone right now. The old version of me would have already been in the car, keys shaking in my hand. Instead, I took a breath. I'm so sorry, Juliet. I can talk tomorrow during my lunch break. What? No, I need you now. This is serious. I understand you're hurting. I'm available at noon tomorrow. My time matters too. A stunned pause. Then quietly, I guess I could wait. I'm sorry, Rochelle. I didn't think about what time it was. Her apology was so unexpected I nearly dropped the phone. When we hung up, I half expected Mother to call, furious at my refusal. The call did come, angry voicemail, accusations of selfishness. I deleted it halfway through without listening to the end. I set the phone down. For the first time, their disapproval did not feel like a verdict. The next afternoon at school, I was stacking books when Robert, the history teacher, whose classroom sat across the hall, stopped at my desk. His tie was crooked, his hands fidgeting with a paperclip. I read the student responses from your unit. Impressive. You really connect with them. I smiled. Thanks. They've been more honest than I expected. He hesitated, then blurted, Would you like to get dinner Friday? Just as friends, maybe. I admire the way you teach. His voice was awkward but sincere. For a moment, I almost said no, instinctively guarding my solitude. But then I thought of Dr. Williams' question. What outcome lets you live with yourself 5 years from now? Dinner sounds nice, I said. The smile that spread across his face was boyish, disarming. Great. There's a little Italian place near campus. I'll text you the details. That week, Aunt Margaret left me a voicemail. Rochelle, I've been sorting through your grandmother's papers. I found something you should see. A ledger and, well, I'll explain when we meet. Call me when you're ready. Her voice shook, a tremor I'd rarely heard. I saved the message, replaying it twice. A ledger. Why did that word keep circling me? The Ridgeview Investments receipt I'd found in Dad's car flickered back into memory. My chest tightened. Friday came. Robert and I sat in a corner booth of a small trattoria, candlelight flickering between us. He asked about my pottery class, my students, my favorite books. For once, someone wanted to hear my answers without redirecting to themselves. At one point, he leaned in, lowering his voice. You know, people notice the way you carry yourself. It's steady, even when you think no one's looking. The words lodged in me, a counterweight to decades of invisibility. When we parted outside, rain misting the street lamps, he didn't press for more than a polite hug. It was enough. That night, I opened my journal. The $2 card was still tucked between its pages, a relic and a warning. I traced its edges, then wrote, Boundaries are not selfish. They are survival. The room smelled faintly of wet clay from the bowl drying on the counter. Outside, the city lights blurred with rain. I thought of Easter dinner, of Juliet's late-night call, of the voicemail deleted without guilt. Small steps, but each one a shift in gravity. I looked at the card again, a reminder of how little they gave, and how much I was beginning to give myself. I whispered into the quiet, "No more invisibility." And this time, the room did not echo back emptiness. Spring melted into summer, and with it came Cousin Caleb's wedding. The venue was a sprawling country club outside the city, all manicured lawns and fountains that glittered in the June sun. I arrived with Robert, smoothing the sage green dress I'd chosen carefully, simple silk that fell just below my knees. Affordable, elegant, mine. "You look beautiful," Robert murmured as he offered his arm. His steady presence had become a quiet anchor in the months we'd been seeing each other. The parking lot buzzed with luxury cars. We stepped past a gleaming Lexus with rust creeping around the wheels. Dad's. I caught the detail like a photographer snapping a candid. Small, easy to miss, but telling. Inside, the reception hall smelled of roses and champagne. Juliet spotted me immediately, waving from the entrance in a sequined cocktail dress, far too formal for a garden ceremony. Her perfume clouded the air as she air-kissed both sides of my cheek. "Rochelle, you actually came, and you brought a friend?" "Robert Thompson," he said warmly, extending his hand. "Colleague." "And more," I added steady. "We've been dating for a while." Juliet's brows arched in surprise. "Mom didn't mention that." "Mom doesn't know everything about my life anymore." Her smirk faltered just as Mom appeared, smile stretched thin like aging elastic. Her eyes flicked over my dress, my necklace, Robert's protective stance at my side. "Rochelle, darling." Her hug was perfunctory, stiff. "You look, well. Is your apartment getting cramped with company these days? Have you thought about upgrading?" My chest tightened, the familiar sting, but I breathed through it. My apartment suits me perfectly. Dad shuffled up behind her, tugging at his collar. His suit hung looser than I remembered. He patted my shoulder, his words almost rehearsed. "There's my independent girl." I offered a polite smile, unwilling to rehearse the script with him anymore. Aunt Margaret swooped in next, saving me with a genuine embrace. Her voice dropped near my ear. "They're having financial troubles. Thomas's investments tanked." The words rattled me more than I let show. The ceremony unfolded in white tulle and string quartets, the vows echoing across manicured hedges. At the reception, cracks in the family facade revealed themselves like hairline fractures in porcelain. Dad cornered the photographer, whispering harshly about payment terms. Mom clutched a handbag I didn't recognize. Not Prada, but worn leather with a scuff on the corner. Juliet's laughter rang hollow as she handed her credit card to the bartender, only to blanch when he returned it, shaking his head. "Sorry, declined," he muttered, sliding the card back. Juliet's eyes darted to me, panic flashing, before she plastered on another smile. I moved outside for air, following a path into the rose garden behind the reception hall. The blossoms hung heavy with June perfume, their petals brushing my arms as I passed. "Running away again?" Juliet's voice broke the quiet. I turned. Her mascara smudged slightly at the corners, the sequins on her dress catching sunset light like sparks. "Taking a moment," I corrected softly. "There's a difference." She sank onto a stone bench, graceless in a way I had rarely seen her. "You're different now." "Yes," I said simply. Juliet twisted her fingers in her lap. "I realized tonight how unfair it's been, all these years. You were right." I sat beside her, careful inches between us. "That's not easy to admit." Her voice cracked. "They can't support me anymore. Dad's business is collapsing, the condo's being sold, my credit cards are maxed out. I never learned to stand on my own like you did." Her confession stunned me more than the champagne bubbles still fizzing in my glass. Juliet, who had floated through life on golden cushions, now sat trembling beside me, foundation streaking down her cheeks. I didn't gloat. I didn't rush to comfort either. I listened. "That sounds difficult," I said finally. She let out a shaky laugh. "Difficult? I don't even know how to live on what I actually earn." The garden light turned amber, painting her sequins like tiny flames. For the first time since childhood, the silence between us felt almost comfortable. Later, back inside, Dad intercepted me near the cake table. His voice carried a nervous edge. "You've always been good with finances. Teachers have solid retirement plans. Maybe you could give some advice, family helping family." I sipped my champagne, waiting. Uncle George boomed across the room, clapping me on the back. "Heard you got department head. Knew you'd go far, Rochelle." Mom appeared instantly, her fingers twisting her wedding band. Rochelle was always our practical one, so responsible. Across the room, Robert laughed with his sister, pride in his voice as he said, "She's the most respected teacher at her school." Juliet approached again, subdued. "Do you know any affordable apartments? Maybe with roommates?" The irony nearly made me laugh. Years of invisibility, and suddenly everyone saw me, though not for who I was, but for what I might provide. On my way back to our table, I noticed a bartender sliding an envelope into a stack of bills behind the bar. The return address caught my eye. Quinn Family Holdings, my surname. My chest tightened. What holdings? We didn't have holdings, at least I didn't. The detail nagged as I rejoined Robert. "You okay?" he asked, reading my face. "Fine," I lied. But my pulse raced. First the Ridgeview Investments receipt in Dad's car, now this. Threads of something larger, knotted and hidden. When Robert and I finally left the reception, night air cooled the heat of the day. We drove in silence, the headlights carving tunnels through darkness. My mind replayed Juliet's tears, Dad's hesitance, Mom's scuffed bag, the envelope behind the bar. It wasn't just neglect anymore. Something tangible was unraveling. I leaned my head against the car window, the glass cool against my temple. "They're not who I thought they were," I whispered. Robert reached across the console, his hand brushing mine. "Maybe now you get to decide who you are without them." The words steadied me, but inside, questions multiplied. What was Quinn Family Holdings? What had Ridgeview Investments paid Dad for? And why had Aunt Margaret's voice trembled when she said she found Grandmother's ledger? The night sky offered no answers, only silence, heavy with secrets waiting to surface. 2 weeks after the wedding, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Family dinner. Sunday at 6. Important discussion." The wording made my skin prickle. Not casual dinner, not drop by when you can. Important discussion. I set a timer on my watch before leaving my apartment, 2 hours maximum. I would not be trapped in endless circular conversations. Dad's Lexus sat in the driveway when I pulled up, its rust now more prominent around the wheel wells. The porch light flickered overhead. No Christmas wreath adorned the door, only shadows that carried more weight than welcome. Mom answered with a hug too tight, her perfume sharp, her smile strained. "Rochelle, you look wonderful. That promotion agrees with you." I stepped into the living room and froze. The Italian leather sectional was gone, replaced by a generic beige sofa. The expensive crystal vase that had dominated the coffee table for years had vanished. Downsizing. The absence spoke louder than any words. Dad rose from his armchair, shoulders stooped, punctual as always. "I have a staff meeting in the morning," I said evenly. "I can stay until 8. Juliet sat in the corner armchair, fingers twisting in her lap. She managed a small wave but didn't meet my eyes. Mom bustled in with a tray of coffee cups. "I made your favorite lemon cookies." She set the tray down with a flourish, as though sugar could disguise what was coming. Dad began without preamble. "The market downturn has been brutal. Our portfolio has taken significant losses." He paced near the fireplace where no fire burned, despite the evening chill. Mom added, her voice dropping. "The bank has been calling about the mortgage. We might lose the house." Juliet shifted uncomfortably, her sequins replaced tonight by a modest sweater, but the shame in her posture was heavier than fabric. Dad cleared his throat. "Juliet's lease renewal is next month. The downtown complex raised the rent again." His eyes flicked toward me. "Your district announced a raise with your new department head position. We were wondering if you might temporarily help with Juliet's expenses, just until things stabilize." Mom smiled, watery and wavering. "Family helping family. You've always been our rock." The words struck like a gavel. Final, authoritative, expectant. I reached slowly into my purse and withdrew the card. Its corners were bent now, edges worn from the months I had carried it. I set it on the coffee table between us. "This," I said quietly, "was the moment I finally saw the truth." Dad glanced down and scoffed. "A Christmas card? Really, Rochelle, we're discussing serious financial matters here. This isn't about money." My finger traced the paper mountain scene. "This is about 29 years of messages that I matter less." Silence spread, thick and immovable. I continued, voice steady, though my hands trembled. Juliet's 16th birthday at the Benson Hotel versus my 13th with a grocery store cake. My scholarship note that I should work part-time, while Juliet's tuition and semester in Italy were fully funded. My graduation, where you arrived late, compared to hers with bouquets and pearl necklaces. Mom's face drained of color. "We never meant—" "I don't believe you did it consciously," I cut in. but it happened consistently, every birthday, every milestone. That's ridiculous, Dad snapped, color rising in his cheeks. We gave you everything you needed. Juliet's voice cut through, soft but sharp, but never what she wanted. The room stilled, all eyes turned to her. Juliet swallowed hard. She's right. We've always treated her as less. I've watched it my whole life, and I benefited from it. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. The foundation of family mythology cracked visibly before me. This isn't about punishing anyone, I said. But if we want a relationship moving forward, it starts with respect and equality. Mom's tears spilled, this time less performative, more raw. So you won't help your sister? I'm not saying that, I answered. I'm saying I won't be the family's financial solution while the pattern continues. I won't fund Juliet's luxury apartment when I've struggled to afford my own. I won't contribute to a dynamic where I give everything and receive nothing. Dad's voice rose, the mask slipping. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? I met his eyes. I'm offering something better than money. Honesty. The chance for a relationship built on mutual respect rather than obligation. Juliet's voice wavered. She doesn't owe us. None of this is her responsibility. The silence that followed was the first honest moment we'd shared as a family in decades. I rose, smoothing my skirt. I need acknowledgement of what's happened. I need my boundaries respected. I'm willing to help Juliet find an affordable apartment, create a budget, apply for jobs, but I will not sacrifice my financial security or self-respect. Mom's shoulders shook with sobs. Dad stared out the window, jaw tight with pride. My watch buzzed, timer complete, 2 hours exactly. I gathered my purse. Think about what I've said. I'll let myself out. The night air outside was sharp, cleansing. Stars pierced the dark like witnesses. In the driveway, my phone buzzed again. A text from Aunt Margaret. I found the ledger. Want it? My pulse quickened. The word ledger glowed on the screen, urgent, undeniable. I started the engine, headlights cutting into the night, and drove away from the house that had raised me in shadows. Behind me, the walls might have still been standing, but the story they told was collapsing. Aunt Margaret lived on the east side of Portland in a craftsman bungalow that smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. When she opened the door, her eyes softened at the sight of me, as if she had been waiting for this moment longer than I knew. I thought you might come, she said quietly, ushering me in. The dining table was cleared of everything except a leather-bound book, worn at the edges, its brass clasp dulled with age. A manila envelope lay beside it, sealed with brittle tape. My pulse hammered. That's it? Grandmother's ledger? She nodded, sliding into the chair across from me. She tracked everything, birthdays, tuition, even grocery money. Fairness was her religion. I found it in a trunk in the attic last month. I sat, fingers hovering above the cover before finally opening it. The pages smelled of dust and time. Columns of neat handwriting stretched across the paper, each entry precise. 1978. Thomas. Tuition paid, $3,400. 1982. Margaret. Birthday. 1994. Juliet. College fund established. $15,000. 1994. Rochelle. College fund established. $15,000. The symmetry made my throat tighten. For once I was there. Equal. Seen. I flipped forward, scanning entries year by year. Each holiday gift, each deposit balanced. Until 2009. Transfer from Rochelle Quinn Education Fund. Juliet Quinn Program. Milan. $12,000. Authorization. Thomas Quinn. My breath caught. I flipped again, faster now, heart pounding. 2010. Transfer from Rochelle Quinn Education Fund. Juliet Quinn. Tuition. $8,000. The numbers screamed off the page. Money earmarked for me. Redirected. Repurposed. Beside the ledger, Aunt Margaret slid the envelope. There's more. Inside was a letter on crisp stationery, my grandmother's signature elegant and firm. To my children and grandchildren, these funds are to be used equally for Juliet and Rochelle. Should either account be borrowed from, restitution must be made by the 21st birthday of the affected child. Fairness is non-negotiable. The notarization seal glared up at me, final and undeniable. I sat frozen, ledger open before me, the letter shaking in my hands. They took it, I whispered. They knew it was mine, and they gave it to her. Aunt Margaret's face twisted with sympathy. I don't think your mother fought it. She told me once Juliet's program in Milan was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Your father said you'd manage on your scholarship, but Rochelle, she leaned closer, they broke the trust, and they never made it right. I closed the ledger with trembling fingers. A sharp nausea rolled through me. All the birthdays, the Christmas card, the late arrivals, those could be excused as neglect. But this was a decision. A deliberate, documented. My chest tightened until breathing hurt. So all those nights I worked shifts at the bookstore, all those loans I'm still paying. Margaret's eyes brimmed. Yes, it could have been different. I pressed the heel of my hand to my forehead, trying to steady myself. Images flashed. Myself at 19, choosing between rent and groceries, while Juliet posted photos from Milan. Dad's dismissive email about my security deposit. Mom's perfunctory birthday calls. They hadn't just overlooked me, they had stolen from me. Margaret's voice broke the silence. You could pursue legal action. This letter would hold weight in court. I looked at her, the thought spinning too fast to catch. Sue my own parents? Drag Juliet into depositions? The idea felt both vindicating and corrosive. What outcome could I live with 5 years from now? I murmured, echoing Robert's question from weeks earlier. Margaret reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. Whatever you choose, Rochelle, know this. You're not crazy. You didn't imagine the imbalance. It's written here, in black and white. Tears blurred the ledger again. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wasn't sure you were ready. Sometimes knowing the truth too early only deepens the wound. But after Christmas, her eyes flicked to the purse where she knew the $2 card still rested. I knew it was time. That night, I drove home with the ledger on the passenger seat, its weight heavier than any textbook I'd ever carried. The city lights blurred past as my thoughts spiraled. Do I confront them outright? Do I hold the ledger like a sword, demand restitution, watch their pride collapse? Or do I keep it hidden, protect what's left of family ties? Robert called as I pulled into my apartment garage. His voice steadied me. How did it go with Margaret? I hesitated, then told him everything. The ledger, the transfers, the letter. There was a long pause. Finally, he said, You have proof. Proof they chose Juliet over you, in writing. That matters. It feels like dynamite, I whispered. One strike and everything blows apart. His tone softened. Then ask yourself, what's justice, Rochelle? What's vengeance? And what would healing look like? I sat in my parked car long after we hung up, the ledger closed, but radiating heat in the dark. Later in my apartment, I placed the ledger on the kitchen table, beside my pottery bowl. The contrast was stark. One object built with my own hands, imperfect, but mine. The other a relic of what had been stolen, precise but corrupted. I opened my journal and wrote, Neglect hurts, betrayal burns. My pen hovered, then continued. But I get to choose whether this fire destroys or refines me. I slid the $2 card inside the ledger, not as an afterthought, but as a bookmark, the symbol of invisibility paired with the evidence of theft. Together they told the whole story. As I prepared for bed, I whispered into the stillness, This isn't over. And for the first time, those words didn't taste like despair. They tasted like power. The following Sunday, I drove to my parents' house with the ledger tucked into my bag. My watch timer was set again. 2 hours, no more. The front porch light flickered weakly as I knocked. Inside, the living room felt smaller than ever, the beige sofa swallowing space where the Italian leather had once been. Mom greeted me with lemon cookies, as though sugar could soften what was coming. Dad rose from his chair, shoulders rigid, eyes scanning my face for weakness. Juliet sat quietly in the corner, hands folded, her usual sparkle dimmed. I set my bag on the table, withdrew the ledger, and placed it between us. What's this? Dad asked sharply. Grandmother's ledger, I replied, and her letter. Mom's face paled, her fingers twitching toward the clasp before pulling back. I opened to the marked pages, sliding the notarized letter across the table. My voice was steady. She intended equality. 2 college funds. Equal support. But you authorized transfers from mine into Juliet's. Twice. And you never restored it. Dad's jaw clenched. That was years ago. You had a scholarship. Juliet needed. She needed, and I managed. That's the story, isn't it? I cut in. I worked 2 jobs, carried debt I'm still paying, while you signed away money meant for me. It wasn't oversight. It was a choice. Mom's eyes filled. We thought you'd be fine. You were always resourceful. I laughed bitterly. Resourceful is what people call you when they've taken your resources. Juliet's voice broke the tension. She's right. I lived off money that should have been hers. I knew it wasn't fair, but I didn't stop it. The words silenced the room. I leaned forward, hands flat on the table. This isn't about revenge. I'm not suing you, though I could. This is about truth. A relationship can't move forward on lies. Dad's nostrils flared. So what, you want repayment? We don't have that kind of money now. I want acknowledgement, I said firmly. I want boundaries respected. I will not be the family's solution to financial problems. I will not fund Juliet's rent or cover for your losses. What I will do is maintain relationships if they are based on equality, honesty, and respect. Mom sobbed into her hands. We never meant to hurt you. You did, I said quietly. Intention doesn't erase impact. Juliet reached across the table, her hand tentative. I'll start paying you back, Rochelle. It won't cover everything, but it's something. And I'll learn to live within what I actually earn. I studied her face. No sequins, no dramatics, just sincerity. That's a start. Dad stared out the window, his pride a fortress. For a moment, I thought he would refuse, bury us in silence. But then he exhaled, shoulders sagging. I was wrong. The words scraped like gravel. I should have protected both of you equally. It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was a crack in the stone. I closed the ledger, slid it back into my bag. This stays with me now, a reminder, and if you ever doubt why I set boundaries, I'll show you these pages. My watch buzzed, 2 hours. I stood, smoothed my skirt, and reached for my coat. Think about what I've said. I'm not cutting you off, but the old way is over. The night air outside felt lighter than when I had arrived, though the stars above remained sharp, indifferent. Weeks later, I hosted dinner in my own apartment. The table was set simply. Pottery bowls I had thrown myself, a vase of wildflowers Margaret had brought, Robert's laughter drifting from the kitchen as he opened wine. Juliet sat across from me, wearing sensible clothes, speaking about her new budgeting app. I found a place with 2 roommates, she said, cheeks pink with humility. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I nodded. That's how I started, too. For once, her eyes didn't flinch from mine. Margaret raised her glass. To new beginnings. We clinked glasses, the sound small but resonant. Later, after everyone had left, I sat alone in the quiet. The ledger rested in a fireproof box by my desk. Beside it, in a simple frame, hung the $2 Christmas card. What once symbolized invisibility now marked the moment I finally claimed my voice. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. I'm sorry, we'll make this right. I didn't reply. Instead, I stepped onto my balcony, watering the herbs that swayed in the night breeze. Growth took time. Roots deepened in silence. I whispered to the dark sky, I choose me. And for the first time, I believed it without doubt.